Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If it's your first time here, hi, my name is Jess. Welcome. Can you guys believe that it is the last Friday of the year? That is absolutely insane. I feel like 2023 just kind of flew by, and I can't wrap my head around the fact that 2024 is literally just a few days away. Like, what? That is absolutely crazy. So I thought that today would be a good day to round up all the books that I've read in 2023 and create a video and share it with you guys. I love reading fiction in particular. I started reading fiction last year and that ball has just continued to roll. It has not stopped, and I feel that I have read more books in 2023 than I did in 2022, and I hope to continue to add to that in 2024. And so I wanted to create this video because I thought it would be really fun for me, and hopefully it's fun and entertaining for you. If you also love reading fiction, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I really wish that I knew people in my real life that enjoyed reading fiction novels, and so who better than to express my passion and my interest with than all of you guys. So without further ado, let's jump into all the books that I read this year. So I'm gonna be starting in chronological order. So in January, I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The very first book actually that I read that got me into fiction was a Taylor Jenkins Reid novel, and that was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. That book was swirling all over TikTok. I was very influenced to start reading it, and I absolutely loved it, and that really did spark the love that I have for fiction books today. And so I find it very fitting that the first book in January of this year was a Taylor Jenkins Reid novel. So this book is a historical fiction novel. It takes place in the 80s. It's essentially about a famous family where the dad is, to put it bluntly, a piece of shit, and it basically follows the life of his kids who are now grown, and you kind of just like see how their relationship is with their dad, how their lives got affected by their relationship with their dad, their relationship with their mother, and it's just like very chaotic, very messy family dynamics. And I gave it a 3 stars, honestly, because it was just very slow. It was low-key kind of boring, and I was a little disappointed because I really, really loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and so I was excited to read this one, but I didn't love it as much as her first book that I read. And then in February, I decided to give Taylor Jenkins Reid another shot and read Daisy Jones and the Six. So I did read this book before the show came out, but I want to say that shortly after I finished it, the show did air, and I've got to say that I enjoyed the book so much more than I did the show. I didn't even really like the show that much, to the point where I didn't even finish it because I was just kind of like, it was so much better in the book than how it was being portrayed on TV, so I just stopped watching it entirely. I did give this book 4 stars, and to give you guys a quick little synopsis, it's essentially about a band that is formed in the 70s, and Daisy is like the main character in the book, and she is a teenager living with her parents who essentially don't really care that much about her or her life, and so that does lead her to feeling very like lonely, and so she does turn to like drugs, alcohol, sex, rock and roll, all that kind of stuff, and she ends up joining a band, and it just kind of follows like their career. And it was an easy read. I got through it pretty quickly. Again, I gave it 4 stars, and they made a show out of it, so a lot of people obviously really enjoyed this book, including myself. So after reading Daisy Jones and the Six, still in the month of February, I read Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is the first book in the Knock 'Em Out series. I didn't know that this was a series when I first started reading this book, but then I found out on TikTok that it was in fact a series, and so that got me really excited. And I really did enjoy this book. I gave this book 5 stars, but it's essentially like a small town romance. It's about this girl named Naomi. She goes looking for her twin sister, ends up in this small town, and in this small town she ends up meeting a guy, and the rest is history. But there's lots of twists and turns. There's crime like tangled up in here because there's like a crime story, but it's not the scary kind of crime. It's more so like political crime. So because I enjoyed the first book so much, I obviously had to get book number 2, which is The Things We Hide from the Light. So I started reading this in March, and I was so excited to continue with the Knock 'Em Out series, and I've got to be honest, I was very disappointed by this book because it just wasn't like my favorite. It was honestly boring, so much to the point where it took me a couple of months to finish it because I kept like DNFing it because I just couldn't get through it. But I did eventually finish it. It just took like a couple of months. It's just very slow paced, and I feel like there was just so much in there that was just like not necessary, and so for that reason I just felt like it kind of kept dragging along, and so I had a hard time like picking it up and continuing to read it. But this book does follow the characters from this book. So in this book, it primarily focuses around Knox and Naomi, but Knox does have a brother named Nash, and so then this book is primarily focused around Nash and then his love life and his relationship, and then also like that same same kind of political crime is also sprinkled into this one as well. But in the end, I did end up rating this 3 stars. So because I was having such a hard time with this book, it kind of put me in like a reading slump. And so for 3 months, I did not pick up a book, not until June. In June, I picked up this one. This is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this one is another romance novel, which if it isn't completely obvious at this point, romance fiction novels are my absolute favorite. So to give you guys a quick little synopsis of this book primarily focuses on Emma, who is in her 20s, and she marries her high school sweetheart, but then he disappears. He is essentially missing for years and years and years and years and years, to the point where she has no other choice but to move on with her life. And so years and years later, she finds herself in a new relationship, like living this whole new life, when all of a sudden her high school sweetheart comes back into the picture and she's having to choose between her 2 loves. Hence the title, One True Loves. So that is essentially what this book is about. I don't want to give any spoilers at all in this book in case you guys have any of these books on your TBR list, or if you are just curious about any of these books. I don't want to give anything away. So yeah, this book did get turned into a movie. I haven't seen the movie, and to be honest, I probably won't, because I just feel like I really enjoyed the book so much. I gave it 5 stars. I don't want to like ruin that by watching a movie, kind of like how Daisy Jones and the Six was. I just didn't enjoy it, so I was like, I don't even want to bother looking into the movie. So then in July, I picked up Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Sanders, which was the first thriller book of 2023. And I saw this because I was just like randomly scrolling on TikTok and I saw someone talk about this book and they literally sold me on it. So I got it the next day, got it delivered on Amazon, and I read this in like, I want to say it was maybe like 3 days or something. It's quite a short book, but oh my gosh, this book was so good. Definitely thrilling, definitely had me like gasping and just completely shocked at some points. So it is essentially about a woman named Joanne who is married to a man named Richard, who has a daughter from his previous marriage, and this daughter comes to stay with them for a little while, and when she does, things start to happen, things start to get weird, and it is just like, it's so good. Like, to the point where Joanne starts to question her own sanity. Like, is she okay? Because Richard's daughter, Chloe, that girl, psycho. Something is wrong with her. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. These synopses probably aren't that good, but again, I just don't want to spoil it. I don't want to slip up and say anything that I'm not supposed to, in case, like I said, in case you're wanting to read these. But if you're looking for a good thriller, an easy read, a page turner, this one is it for sure. I gave my first psychological thriller of the year 5 stars. So after I read that thriller, I was so pleased with the TikTok recommendations that I went back on TikTok, started scrolling, and I came across this book that so many people really loved, and it's called The Nightingale by Kristen. So this is a historical fiction novel, and it takes place during World War II, and it primarily focuses around 2 sisters. And because I did DNF this book, I genuinely don't know what it all encompasses and what it's all about. All I know is that it was very difficult for me to get into the book, and it's such a shame because so many people had such good things to say about this. One girl even got like a tattoo because of this book, and I even look inside here and see all these amazing quotes and like praise that this book has gotten, and I just couldn't get into it. I even tried the audio version of the book and still I just couldn't get into it. So maybe I can pick this up again sometime in 2024. This one is also being made into a major motion picture, so it is going to be a movie very soon, and so maybe I'll just watch the movie and put down the book, or if I like the movie enough, I'll pick up the book. I don't know. This was the first and only book that I DNF'd this year because I couldn't get into it. I tried my best, I really did. So me not being able to finish that last book really did put me in a slump, so much so that I took an entire month off of reading, so there were no books read in August, but in September, they did drop the 3rd book in the Knock 'Em Out series, which is Things We Left Behind, again by Lucy Score. And this book focuses on Lucian and Salome, which are again characters from the series. And like I said, this book was primarily focusing around Knox and his relationship. This one was focusing on the brother, Nash's relationship and like his whole life. And this book focuses on the best friend of the brothers. His name is Lucian, and his whole relationship. This book was so good. Easily a 5 star. My favorite book of the series for sure. Also, I don't think I mentioned it, but this series does have quite a bit of spice, which I personally like spicy books, okay? They don't have to be crazy spicy, but I do like a little bit of spice sprinkled every now and again. And this book definitely delivered on the spice. So like I said, this book primarily focuses on Lucien and Salome and their whole dynamic. It also does tie all the loose ends in regard to the political crime story that's also happening at the same time as like the whole romance of it all. So if you like a small town romance, if you like spicy romance novels, you'll definitely enjoy the Knock 'Em Out series. Except for maybe book 2, maybe just skip out on that one. But the first one and this last one, 10 out of 10. So after I read the last book in the Knock 'Em Out series in September, I did take a break in October, and then in November, I picked up this book, which is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book was such a cute read. Oh my gosh. First and foremost, I'm obsessed with the cover of this book. I think it's just so freaking adorable. I literally just want to have it like sat up on my shelf so that I can stare at it because it's so cute. All these little illustrations are just adorable. So this book is obviously another romance novel, and it primarily focuses around Macy and Elliot, the two main characters in the book. Macy and Elliot essentially grew up together, and they've just been through so much in their lives, but they do end up going their separate ways once they kind of get into college and stuff like that. And Macy does end up creating a whole life of her own when she all of a sudden one day just comes across Elliot randomly on the street, and you can guess where things kind of go, but it is such a good love story. Like literally made me bawl my eyes out near the end. Like the last few chapters of this book were just so like heart-wrenching, but in such a beautiful way. It was just such a good read. Like if you love love and you want a book that's like a tearjerker with a good ending, get yourself this book right here. It's not too long either, so it's a nice easy read. I feel like this would be a good one to read in February as well, because like February is the month of love. You better believe I'm gonna be reading as many romance novels as I can come February, so you're gonna be sick of me on TikTok, because that's honestly where I share all my little like book reviews or like my final thoughts on books. I more so just started doing it recently with the ACOTAR series, because the ACOTAR series really did just steal my heart this year. That was in fact the series that I started right after I finished Love and Other Words. So at the end of November, I started to read the first book in the ACOTAR series, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses. And this book was a 5-star for sure, but I will say that at the beginning I did struggle to read this book just because it's a little bit slower paced. Like a lot of these romance novels that I read are very fast paced, and so that's just kind of like the pace that I was used to reading, and this one is a little bit slower. So the genre of the ACOTAR series is fantasy romance, and so with fantasy comes a lot of world building, more specifically because this is such a big series. And so because there's a lot of world building, there's so much descriptiveness, so many details. And so I think maybe that was why it was a little slow for me, because it is the first book. You know, they're trying to build a picture, they're trying to create the setting, they're trying to really get you to like visualize and like fully get you into this fantasy world. And so I think that's kind of why I maybe struggled a little bit. But let me tell you, once I got about halfway, I started flipping through the book because it was just so good. I couldn't stop reading it. And once I finished it and moved on to the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury, I flew by the book. Like this book is twice as thick, and I finished it in about the same amount of time because I just loved it so much, and it just kind of continued from there. After I read A Court of Mist and Fury, I moved on to A Court of Wings and Ruin, which was just as good. This one was such a roller coaster. I give all of these books 5 stars. Even this one, I feel like people online have mixed reviews of this book where they kind of think that you don't need it, but I personally think that you should read it. It's not that long, so I mean, if you can get through reading these thick old boys, then you can definitely get through reading this small little one. And it does give you different POVs, which I thought was interesting. At first though, I was struggling a little bit to kind of go from chapter to chapter because the POVs did change so much, because throughout the whole series, you're really reading through Feyre's point of view, which is the main character. And then in some of the books, you get point of views from Rhysand, which is the other like male main character in the series, but it's not often. And so I was just so used to reading through Feyre's point of view, and so whenever I got to this book and it kind of was just jumping all over the place, I was a little confused, but it wasn't too bad. And then the last book in the series really took me by surprise because it didn't primarily focus on Feyre and Rhysand like the rest of the series had. It switched over into focusing more on Nesta and Cassian, which I really did appreciate, because let me tell you, the spice in this book was so good. I thought Court of Mist and Fury was spicy until I got to A Court of Silver Flames. I was like, wow, Cassian really is that guy, holy shit. But to give you guys a quick little synopsis on the entire series, it basically follows Feyre at the beginning, and she has 2 sisters and a dad. They live in poverty, and she's basically like in the woods looking for food because she has to go out and like fetch food for her family, and she ends up killing this wolf-like creature. This wolf-like creature ends up being a fae, and essentially because she did kill this fae creature, he had, you know, like family, and so that family came wanting to essentially settle the score, like, you took something from me, now I'm taking something from you. And so they ended up taking Feyre across the wall into the fairy realm, and that is where the whole story kind of just unfolds and begins. She ends up meeting this guy there, ends up falling in love, but then things take a turn, and everything just kind of goes from there, and it gets so good. It's an enemies to lovers trope, which I personally really enjoy. I actually found out today that they might be doing a TV show on this book series that's gonna be coming out on Hulu, and I genuinely didn't think that I would live to see when this series came to life on television, but if it ends up happening sooner rather than later, I am going to be so grateful. But I'm not going to lie, I am a little nervous. I feel like once they come out with a cast, I'll make my decision on whether I wanna watch the show or not, because I feel like I have an image in my mind of what these characters look like, and just the whole series, like I kind of have it pictured in my head. And if it's not going to give what it needs to give, then I might not watch the show. But who's to say, maybe I'll change my mind once they start rolling out the clips for the show. So those were all the books that I read in 2023. Well, in reality, there was a total of 14 books. 13 of them were finished. One of them I did not finish, but perhaps we'll finish it in 2024. Who knows? Maybe at the end of next year, I'll film another video like this. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up so that way I know to keep on reading and keep compiling a list of all the books that I read the following year. So yeah, you guys, that wraps up the end of this video. I will link all the books down below in the description box if you are interested in any of them. And again, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on the bell notification, that way you're notified every time I upload a brand new video. And if you've read any of these books, comment down below which one it was and what you rated it, how you felt about them, and all that stuff, because I would love to know. Because again, I don't know anyone in my real life who enjoys reading fiction, and so if I could create like a little community, or feel like I have a little group of friends here on my channel that also enjoy these kind of books, that would be so much fun. So definitely comment it down below if you've read any of these, or if you recommend any books that are either romance or romance fantasy or anything like that that you think I would like based on the books that I just shared with you. Please comment them down below. Okay, so that's everything, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you so much. I wish you a happy new year, and I will see you in 2024. Bye.